So we are in interesting times. Boy, I think there's a lot to process here, and I think regardless of one's views on the election, I think that it is something that still remains at the fore of so many of us in terms of what we're thinking about right now. I just wanted to, for whatever it's worth, offer a few observations. The first is that I was saddened when I looked at the Electoral College map. This was a close election, and that also may have been lost in some of the coverage, but the fact of the matter is Secretary Clinton won the popular vote by a small margin, but won the popular vote. And we have an Electoral College map that is blue down the coast and red across the whole swath of the middle of America. I hope that we can get to a place that where there is more unity and more attention is paid to some of the issues of economic inequality, or feeling like some have made it and others have not. And I think that's some of the sentiment that you see driving what ultimately were the results out of the Rust Belt states. And I think that's something that we need to pay attention to. Another observation is that this campaign was I think, frustrating to Americans on so many levels. It was way too long. We were subjected to way too much television and media, and at the end of the day, a lot of opinions and blogs. And I hope, if anything, that this serves as sort of a wake-up call that, you know, there actually is a place for facts. There is a place for reality and discussion. I mean, I think about the work that you all do, right? I mean, imagine building your businesses and driving your businesses based on opinion, you know? You don't make widgets based on, you don't make midgets. You don't, but think about it, whatever you guys are in, right? I mean, like if somebody were to come to you with a plan, whether it's for marketing or manufacturing, you know, you're looking for some hard data and science and facts, right, to drive things. And unfortunately, I feel like we've gotten away from that as a society, and I think for the good of society and for us going forward, we got to get back to a place where we actually take account of facts and reality and pay attention to that. The internet is a wonderful thing, social media is a wonderful thing, but now everybody's got their blog, everybody's got their microphone, and I think that television made a lot of money by putting a lot of people up there. Just about any one of us could get a job. You know, did you see them all rotate in and out from where they campaign onto the news and then back out again? To me, it's just silly, and I think it frustrates people. But more than frustrating people, I think it's really unhealthy for the evolution and the growth of our democracy. And so, you know, like you, I believe in facts. I believe in education, and I think that we have an obligation to do a better job of making that be front and center in campaigns, whether they're presidential or other. We need to get back to a place where people are really talking about facts and talking about policy. We also need to make sure that people are actually paying attention to and engaged in that. It saddens me that more people vote for American Idol than vote for president in this election. In some respects, it's not surprising to me that we elected a reality TV star. We need to get to a place, and I've long been a proponent of more civics education. A couple things, folks. Civics education in school, also financial literacy education in schools. Empowering people, getting them tuned in, getting them acclimated at the most basic level about how our democracy functions, how our government functions. I think that's important. We need an engaged citizenry, and we need people paying attention. And that's what I hope we see. I don't know how we're going to get there, but I was struck by what I saw during the course of this election. I also am struck by the fact that we seem to have lost a sense of certain bright lines that I thought existed. Bright lines between right and wrong, you know, and what we were taught at the most basic level in school or by our parents. And that's unfortunate. We need to get back to a place where, regardless of partisan positions or where you stand on policy, there is actually a place for right and wrong and understanding the difference and knowing when certain lines have been crossed. And unfortunately here, over the last 18 months, I saw, and I think we were witness to, some pretty outrageous conduct, some pretty outrageous statements. And it's unfortunate. Statements that, to me growing up, conduct to me growing up, would have clearly fallen on this side of the line about being what's wrong. And I think we, as a society, need to get back to a place where, fundamentally, guys, there is right and there is wrong. And we've got to be clear about that. And we can debate policy and we can disagree. Let's do so agreeably. That's okay. But there is right and there is wrong, and we don't want to lose our compass that way. And finally, I think that there is an obligation that all of us in government have to ensure integrity in the system. We just saw the transfer of power, and that's a good thing, peacefully. Transfer of power, the institutions in our government working, that's what we rely on, that's what we're founded on. That is so, so important. And I think all of us in government have an obligation to the American people to make sure that that continues. We also have an obligation to make sure that there is integrity in the system. And that's something that I take seriously as Attorney General, you might imagine. But I take it seriously because I think that's the only way our system can truly function as a democracy. Similarly, we need integrity in the markets, right? Otherwise, it's not a real market. It's not going to function well. We need integrity in our systems in government in order for our government to function well and to serve the people as the democracy it's supposed to be. And so I do have some concerns. There are a lot of questions right now. We don't know what's going to come from the president-elect's new administration in terms of policies. There seem to be some new positions evolving, emerging. We've got a ways to go before President-elect Trump takes office. But while we're awaiting that and evaluating that, I also think it's important that we press for integrity in the system. And I will tell you, I have concerns about conflicts of interest. I have concerns about what is known and what is unknown. Look, you run businesses, there are certain rules that you got to play by, certain rules that I have to play by, and I certainly would think and hope that when it comes to running the highest office in the land, that we're doing everything that we can to ensure integrity in that system, so there's no question, and certainly there should not be any conflict. So thank you for letting me, indulging me in those observations. I just needed to get that off of my chest, okay? All right. So let me tell you about the immediate things that we're working on. And there are a number of things, and some of these are things that we've talked about in the past. One thing that is new that I did this week, though, consistent with what I think is my responsibility to protect people and stand up for the rule of law and protect their rights, we did set up a hotline in this office for people who were experiencing or wanted to report incidents of bias-motivated hate or conduct or violence. And we have seen in the last few days a real uptick nationally and across the state in those kinds of incidents. There were newspapers delivered by the KKK to households in Milford over the weekend. I had a Muslim American woman who left our state office building. She was at work and left and went out onto the street, Cambridge Street in downtown Boston, and was yelled at to go home, wearing a hijab, told to go home. I've heard so many reports, even from my staff, but others as I'm out and about what their kids were talking about in school, notes from parents, notes from teachers home about just concerns about what kids were experiencing. Statements from many immigrant folks and members of the Latino community I spent time with on Monday, who were already and had already been subjected to name-calling and harassment here in the state. Women who've reported being subject to harassment here in the state. There's no place for this kind of conduct, and I just wanted to send a message that, first of all, if it happens, there's a place that you can report this to. We'll investigate, we'll assess, we'll take action as appropriate. But also to send the message that we understand the difference between right and wrong and that we're going to apply the law here. I hope this doesn't continue. I don't know how long this will continue, but we're going to be there to make sure that people's rights are protected. And I just wanted to give you that as background. I've also said, because I took some heat from those who thought it was a gimmick, and I know it's not a gimmick when I've received over 200 calls in just the last 2 days alone. I've also been clear that, for example, if there were a person who was attacked because he was a supporter or she was a supporter of Donald Trump, they deserve the same protection under the law. It's as simple as that. So if you know of anybody who has reported something to you anecdotally, I think it's important to capture this information. We have a hotline, and we also have a way to report on social media right to our office. So now to the critical policy issues that are before us as we await the fate and direction of our country. So, I talked about partnership and the need to work in partnership. And I am so serious that I think the need to work in partnership with you all is more important than it has ever been. Massachusetts is a place that is doing relatively well. We've got such an abundance of talent here, intellectual capital, human capital, terrific industry, a great philanthropic bent, academe. We've got it all here. This is a great state. And I think now is the time to make sure we are steady in our leadership, resolved in our values, and that we continue to work together in what may be and what are unpredictable times. And I think Massachusetts has been a leader nationally and will continue to be a leader nationally, provided we work in continued partnership. One area of uncertainty right now is healthcare. And I know that all of us in this room have spent a lot of time on the issue of healthcare. I think it's safe to say that some change at the federal level will come. Isn't that mind-blowing? What that looks like, I have no idea. We were going to repeal Obamacare, and now maybe we're going to keep in place protections for people with pre-existing conditions, let parents keep their kids on up to age 26. Some reports have suggested that the new Congress and administration may act quickly to defund Obamacare through a budget reconciliation process. I think that would be a big mistake. Defunding the ACA through the budget reconciliation process would be a big mistake. Now, we know that the ACA needs some work. We've talked about this many times, and we should get to work. In my view, we should get to work on the work we need to do to reform that, to improve that. But we're going to have to see and evaluate here over the next few weeks and coming months. I think there are real questions. I think there are real questions about what will this mean for Medicaid? What will this mean for funding to our state? This is an important issue. I would anticipate that we will see the lowering of federal dollars. To what extent, I don't know. Another question, what happens to the waiver that we just obtained, the Medicaid waiver? CMS has the prerogative to be able to adjust that, and it's possible we may see adjustments. That's an important issue for us to keep our eye on. What will this mean in terms of the possibility of turning Medicaid into a block grant program? Maybe less likely a scenario, but just something for us to keep our eye on. So to that end, I've instructed my team to pay close attention to moves out of the administration, to watch the playing field and to anticipate the implications of particular actions and what the options will be for Massachusetts, including, folks, options that may need to be exercised to prevent changes that would harm Massachusetts consumers and businesses and harm or impact the vitality of our health care market. I also reached out to the Speaker, to the Senate President. My team's been talking with HHS and members of the administration in recent days about these very issues. I think it's really important for all of us in government to work together and be having a conversation about what it is we're seeing, what may come, and what moves we may need to make. And it's a conversation that I think should involve all of us. And I'd like to get all of us at the table, hospitals, insurers, the business community, government, to discuss a path forward. So more to come on that. But I know that we have always had an important role in this space, and more than ever, people will be looking to us. Regardless of federal changes, though, at the federal level, the legal framework of that Massachusetts put in place under Governor Romney that really served as the model for the ACA will remain in place. So in key ways, I know we are better positioned, strongly positioned to keep our healthcare systems running smoothly, but I'm also mindful that hospital stocks dropped over the weekend, and I just think it's real important that we pay attention to this, that we do everything we can to ensure continued access to health care, that we work, of course, to reduce costs, but that everybody be at the table for this. It's a really important issue for us in Massachusetts, but for us nationally. And I know I can count on you and members in this room to be part of that dialogue. Speaking of cost trends, this continues to be an important issue as we get ready to respond to changes on the federal level. Let's continue to do our job and work on our affordability agenda here in the state. And there's plenty to do on that front. As I go around the state, I continue to hear the concerns about the serious increases in premiums. For many of you, your premiums have increased even as deductibles and copays have gone up. I know that 1 in 5 with insurance in Massachusetts are delaying or foregoing care because of costs, and 1 in 6 have difficulty paying their medical bills. 1 in 5 are struggling with medical debt. So we know this. It's the subject of discussion. I'm looking out at Pat Begrowitz from Onyx Paper here in Massachusetts, out in Lee, and I think you're facing, you said, a 20% premium increase, despite everything else going right at your business. So I'm mindful of the work we need to continue to do on that issue. My office was out with a couple of reports just a little while back. You can read more about them on our website. They're available too if anybody's interested. We've got them published and available there. In the first one, we focused on transparency and specifically the greater need for more transparency about the price of high-cost pharmaceuticals. I firmly believe the life science industry is an incredibly important and vital industry, not to us here in Massachusetts alone, and not just to this country, but globally in terms of what it offers and what it brings. It's critical. We just want to make sure that we're supporting the right kind of investments there. Our second report found that as a state, we're continuing to spend more of our healthcare dollars on residents in higher income communities than we are on residents in lower income communities, and that all consumers, including employers, are covering those costs, those extra costs. So we believe that incentives to reduce that disparity will increase both the efficiency and the fairness of our spending. Moving from healthcare to another topic, energy. Again, I don't know quite what to offer in terms of a prediction here. We have to see where the administration is on this. Obviously, the state here in Massachusetts has done a lot of work and has done a lot of work regionally with other states to get in place plans for our energy future. And to what extent those are implicated, at risk, we just need to learn more. But Rebecca and the team in my office are very acutely focused on this issue. As you know, the legislature took a big step this year in the direction of diversifying our New England fuel supply. I believe that diversification of our energy sources is really critical. And the law that was passed this spring permits utilities to enter into long-term contracts for large amounts of offshore wind, clean energy, and hydroelectricity. The role I see for my office and my charge to the team is to make sure that we have a competitive, transparent process that results in cost-effective contracts that minimize customer risk. Now, we'll be working to help make sure that the benefits we all want from this new law are realized in the contracts, are realized when the rubber hits the road. And that's the work that we're going to be engaged in. It's important. And we continue to look to you for dialogue and helping inform the decisions that we make. We're also going to be spending time this year on our role as ratepayer advocate. You know, that's one of the statutory roles of the Attorney General's office. And we're going to continue to challenge the amount of profit that transmission companies are allowed to earn. Already, I want to report our office is currently on track to add over $100 million to the $30 million credit that ratepayers received from our federal litigation last year over transmission costs. We got $30 million back last year. We're slated to get another $100 million back this year. That's a good thing. It's a good example of the kind of ratepayer advocacy work that we can do out of our office that benefits employers and consumers here in the state. I know that there will be rate work ahead for us. It is anticipated that we will see a proposed rate increase by our friends here at Eversource, who, where are you? Table 2? Good morning, gentlemen. Look, and we've had a great relationship over the years, but know that we're going to look hard at that, and our job as ratepayer advocate will be to make sure that proposed rates are analyzed and that every effort is made to make sure that we're doing our job to protect employers and to protect ratepayers here in this state. And so more to come on that. And I want to make sure that ratepayers here get their share, and a rate case, which is something that we all anticipate happening, is going to be the right way to make that happen. So stay with me on this, stay with our office on this. I think on healthcare, I think on energy. There's been a lot of movement within our state over the last few years. I think these are really critically important issues, and I continue to look to you and count on you for dialogue in this effort. And I say, partnership is big, teamwork is big. I appreciate the teamwork earlier this year. Together we worked to pass to help get past an equal pay law for the first time in over 50 years, and I really appreciate the way that the leadership of this organization and people in this room came together to put in place a law that makes sense for employees, but also for employers. That's exactly where we want to be, and we're going to continue to work. I think the work is already underway. Where's Brad? Poor Brad. We're already working on coming up with the guidance on how to implement that new law and make it work and to be a resource for employers across this state. So to conclude, we have a lot of questions right now. As I stand before you, I think about the next 6 months, where we'll be in the next 6 months, where we'll be in the next 3 months, where we'll be in a year. I think it's hard for us to predict where we may be, but one thing I take comfort in is that there are people of such goodwill, of such good intent in this room and across this state, and it's up to us to work together and to do what we can for our residents, for our families, and for our businesses. And it's our responsibility collectively to be a strong advocate for the people of Massachusetts and all that Massachusetts affords. So I look forward to ongoing communication, ongoing dialogue, and at this moment I look forward to your questions. Thank you.